I am very excited to share this with you this morning. Jessie, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Jessie is an NLP master practitioner who specializes in grief and trauma coaching. We worked together last year.
Yeah, so it was, I think we actually started working together in 2019, didn't we?
Yeah, a bit before, and then we decided to extend it. And not only did we work through some of the most transformational stuff in the middle of a pandemic, we overcome a lot. So do you want to do a little intro for yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
So I am an NLP master practitioner, which means I help people transform their lives by helping them to tap into their unconscious mind and find the tools within themselves to transform their negative thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And I specialize in grief and trauma coaching.
Amazing, amazing. And we might as well just like jump straight into the nitty-gritty, right? So what led you to be inspired to do grief and trauma counseling?
Well, I avoided that actually for like the first year of my coaching.
Did you? I would have known.
Yeah, so that wasn't really, like before that, I was kind of working very broadly with people with anxiety and low confidence and stress and things like that. And after working with you, peeling back the layers of the things that I'd gone through, then I decided to jump into grief and trauma coaching. But yeah, so I lost my sister to suicide 10 years ago, nearly 11 years ago. And so that was like a major part of me. There was lots of things that I was carrying around that had been holding me back, like the guilt and feeling like I had failed her, and so many layers of grief that I was holding on to that I thought was grief, but it was actually like beliefs that I had made around what had happened, had made the meanings that I had given it. And so when we worked together and we started peeling those back, that really took the intensity out of the grief. I'll always miss her and I will always love her, but peeling back the beliefs that I had made around the event really helped me to heal and to close those wounds up and to be able to move on and move forward. And that was like working with you, and so that helped me do a lot of that. And then I went into master prac and peeled back even more layers and did more transformational work. And then when I was in master prac, I had the big light bulb moment where I was like, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to work with, this is where all my passion comes from, this is why I want to help people. And yeah, and then I decided to fully step into and actually give myself that label of grief and trauma coach, because for me, I was like running from those negative connotations. And then I realized, like, if we actually just start talking about it, it doesn't have to be such a negative thing. So yeah, that's what led me to it.
Okay, great. So so many questions already answered in that space. So what I want to do now is like backtrack. And this is how, and what I do want to do is just point out though, like from, where we started working, Jessie, to where you are now, and literally to hear you sum all of that up. I mean, I know what we worked our way through personally for you. And then to hear how that's evolved since then. And obviously I watch your stories and I see all of your posts. I watch your language and the way that you talk every time. I mean, you would know, because I'm just like, yes, go get it. Yes. I can see it and I can hear it in the way that you talk and the way you present yourself, how much you have integrated from where you started. And I feel like that's the most, I mean, your clients are going to experience that with you. And I feel like, that's such a privilege, and that we get as coaches. Not only do you see your clients transform, then when they move on, you get to watch them transform even further. And then they get to pass on that as a ripple effect. And the work that they did, and it's just a continuum, right? Whether they're coaches or not, it's a ripple effect anyway. So let's backtrack to when I met you, because originally we had, I guess, gone on a bit of a, I guess, a plan or a bit of a map to work on your business, right? And you just gotten out of a 4-year relationship at the time, or I think it was sort of, yeah, maybe fresh out of it or a bit after. And you were in this space of really wanting to kick off your business and get it rolling, right? Can we talk a little bit about what happened for you when you left your relationship?
So it was a really scary moment, because I had believed up to that point that I needed people to survive. So I needed a relationship, or I needed somebody there sort of helping me. And then when I was faced with leaving that, like, I really was questioning my own survival. So there was like that, my heart was pounding in my chest. I can remember the morning that I had to leave, and it was that I chose to leave. And yeah, I really thought at that moment that I was kind of might die. You know, I might not be able to do it on my own. I might not survive. And so I was in this, I think when I met you, I was kind of 6 months after that.
Yeah.
And but I was still so lost. Like, I'd got my own place. I spent sort of 3 months kind of not having a home, and like house sitting and doing different things, staying with friends and family. I lived in a donga at one point, and then I had my own place. I was in my own place, but I was still feeling really, really lost, and like I wanted to move forward, but I didn't know how. And I could feel like I had like 1 foot on the accelerator, but I felt like I had like 3 on the brake. So it was like this kind of motion of like really wanting to move forward, but not really knowing how to move forward. And I thought that it was my business that I needed to move forward in, and that if I could just move forward in my business, then everything would be okay. And so that was kind of where I was at when I came to work with you.
And it's also like, I love the analogy that you use, that you had 1 foot on the accelerator and 3 feet on the brake. Because this was kind of like a little bit, one of my favorite things. Obviously I couldn't say this to you at the time because we're working through things, but I'm sure I've mentioned it to you afterwards. One of my favorite things of working with you is your determination and your passion, and you're like, no, I want to work on this. We're working on this. Like, I want to build my business. I want to do this. And I'm in my mind, I'm like, in order for you to do that, like clearing some space is going to be super beneficial. So as much, and the level of like, there was, such an amount of resistance at times, because you knew like, it was like this force pulling you forward, or like, yes, I want to make all this stuff happen. And I know of that within myself. And I know from like coaches I've worked with myself, I've like put my foot down. No, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Yeah. And we have many of those moments. I actually have many of those moments with my clients. And I actually believe that's why I attract many of my clients, because I can sit in that space and totally be okay with it. And especially I find like, when you are working with grief or you are working with loss, and I've worked with a couple of clients before who had lost people in their lives, it's not necessarily a place that people pop their hand up and go, hey, I really want to dive into this. I really want to clear all of my emotions. I want to get it out. I want to let it out. And, I just want to be at peace with it and move forward, because there's so much that you are holding on to, including stories, beliefs, memories, many other things. And, letting go of that can mean many different things for many people. And so there was this beautiful, like, foot on the pedal, but also three feet on the brake. And each time we managed to work our way through the resistance and just letting go, there was like a new Jessie that emerged, and like, and I feel so many times there was a couple of days like integration afterwards, or sometimes it was a week or so where where we did the work or did inner work. And then it wasn't until like a couple of days after you were like, ah, yeah, like I'm sitting with this. Okay. Right. And for me personally, that's quite a, like it's a bit of an art, right? To be with your client and also create space for them and allow them to integrate and to process the things that we've worked on in our session. So I guess what I'm saying is it's an art to hold space for someone, not only in a session and not just with grief, like with anything, to hold space for someone in a session, to also trust that they're going to integrate and process that in their own time. And, I remember when I first started out in coaching many years ago, I was like, back in my PT days, or even when I first started NLP, I was just like, if they didn't get the transformation or if they didn't get the aha moment in the session, I was like, shit, like, and that was stuff then for me to work through. But there's this beautiful art of learning how to do that over time and just trusting the process. And I feel like that was a fair bit of our journey, right? It's like put the foot on, resistance, allow it in, flourish. And we found ourselves a bit of a rhythm like that over time. So from there, there's so many things I've written down that I want to talk about. Like, let's just flow this out. So from there, the stuff you wanted to create with your business, let's talk a little bit about the business stuff. Yeah. So back then you felt a bit lost with that. And as we worked through, well, actually, let's talk about your grief and trauma that you were experiencing at the time. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah. So I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family, and I see it just like a little disclaimer, like I see it very differently now. I don't see it as something that happened to me, but see it as something that happened for me. And I've let go of blame and the finger pointing and that victim sort of mentality of I had a really tough childhood, because so I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I come from it's kind of like generational. So my parents were alcoholics and their parents were alcoholics, and they grew up, they had dysfunctional childhoods, but they didn't realize that what they experienced was dysfunctional, and they didn't realize that they were continuing the cycle. So I grew up with that, and that created a whole lot of emotional beliefs and negativity and sort of that victim mentality of like, why did this happen to me? Why me? And I had sort of stunted my confidence. I had lots of anxiety. There was lots of things going on that I had never dealt with and never knew how to deal with. I just didn't have those tools. And I probably was carrying quite a bit of PTSD from my childhood and things like that I didn't really even know was there. And then in my 20s, when I was 23 or 24, that was when I lost my sister. And so that happening brought all of my childhood stuff back. And I had kind of been carrying it around for about 10 years when I met you, that intensity of all that built up stuff and not knowing how to deal with it. Well, I mean, like 34 years when I met you. But the moment that it all sort of came flooding back was when I realized it was kind of a problem, but I didn't really know what to do with it. And I didn't think it was my problem, actually. I thought it was my parents' problem, and I thought it was, my family's problem, and they had to deal with it and they had to change. But I didn't realize how much I was actually giving my power away when I expected them to change. I didn't realize that I could actually change everything for myself. And that was what working with you really helped me to understand, was that the power for change was all within me.
Yeah. And so you mentioned something like really super important there, in terms of the experiences you were having and things happening to you as opposed to things happening for you. And this is, for everybody watching, this is definitely like a life transforming statement in itself, right? If everything is happening to you, what kind of feelings, or how, like, even if you just try that on, right? If everything's happening to you, how does that feel for you? Right? It does. It feels like everything's coming at you. You want to like step away. Like, what the hell? What did I do wrong? Like, why, what? Right? And you're pointing the fingers, and then we're kind of like, why is this happening to me? Like, I don't understand. What did I, in my case, it was like, what did I do wrong? Like, that was my big, like, you know, narrative in my mind for a very long time. Like, why me? Like, what did I do wrong? So then we've got happening for me, right? So I want to touch on this with you, Jessie. So if we look at the things that we have worked through, and if we look at your sister's death and how your parents were, what are some examples around it happening for you? Like, what are some of the, I guess, lessons that you've really taken from understanding that it's all happening for you instead of happening to you? And then how did that change how you showed up?
Yeah, well, I guess like for people watching as well who have experienced like traumatic events or a lot of grief, it's like almost seems impossible to be able to look at it from that perspective of happening for you. Like, how could losing my sister be something that happened for me? Or how could, you know, the trauma in my childhood be something that happened for me? Like, it just seems almost impossible to understand that.
And
But
just on that point, and this is a conversation we had many times when we, you know, and so for those of you watching, like, some of this resistance is exactly that. What do you mean? Like, how on earth is this happening for me? And I guess anyone that's watching that has experienced something similar, I just want to really acknowledge that that is just like a complete part of the process. And it's really important to be in that space first, to then really be able to transform yourself to the other space. Like, I feel like that is such an important part, and you'll be able to talk on this more. It's such an important part to really, as I say, own your shit, is for you to be at one side so you can be in that space to then literally integrate it, what we call shadow work, integrate that to be able to get to the other side of it happening for you and come out with these lessons. So yeah, sorry, I hijacked that one, but I just really wanted to point that out for anybody that's listening. It is, if you feel a victim, if you feel like, why me? Why is it happening to me? Just honor it, acknowledge it. It's so freaking important. And, you know, acknowledging that will get you faster to it happening for you. All right.
Yeah, because it's super easy to say, like, for me now, and it's super easy to say, oh, things are happening for you and not to you. But I really do get the resistance behind that. And but without being in that space of things happening to you, there is no transformation to things happening for you. So you really, as you say, have to be in that space. Yeah. And some of the big lessons, that I got from that is, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Collateral Beauty. And I just love that concept of collateral beauty instead of like collateral damage. Like, look, as opposed to looking and seeing there are things that happen that are, you know, probably not ideal that you could look at as a result of trauma. But there's also a lot of beautiful things that can happen and that do happen as a result of trauma or loss or grief. And I think that was the one thing for me, was like, I'm going to get emotional. When I lost my sister, it was almost like I didn't want to see it, but there was almost like all these beautiful parts of me that I got to be and experience because of that. And if almost like a sacrifice, and if she hadn't have done that, if she didn't choose that, I would never have got to be the person that I am today. I would never have been able to grow in all the ways that I've been able to grow without losing her. And that is something to hold on to and to grab onto with everything that you have, because without grabbing onto that, all you've got is the shit stuff. Like, all you've got is is the bad stuff. So if you can actually like embrace the beautiful things that happen, that's when you can step into that place of things happening for you and actually feeling gratitude towards that. And now I see it as like this beautiful sacrifice that she made so I could be the person that I am today.
Yeah, and what a beautiful gift, having been through that experience, to then be able to hold space and create a platform for other people to then be able to transform that for themselves. And having been through it yourself, you know, I love to walk your talk and, you know, all my slogans like that. It just really is when people come to you for something so, so close to them, to know that you hear them, you see them, and you get them to which you knew the experience yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what kind of, you know, as we unpacked, I guess, some things that, you know, were tough to look at, or let's talk about some of this tough things that for you to swallow, or the tough moments or experiences for yourself that were tough to swallow during our coaching time. And even afterwards, but yeah, just like as we were going through the experience, what were some of the toughest things that you experienced or faced during that time?
It was definitely forgiving my parents for the childhood and the upbringing that I had was definitely really tough, looking at that, because I had a lot of resistance and blame and anger towards them. And at the time we weren't even speaking. And so looking at that and seeing, it was tough to, the resistance there. I think I resisted shadow work with them like for weeks or months.
3 weeks to be, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks to be exact. No, not ready to do that. Nope, not going there. No. Nope. Well, I want to work on this. I'm like, okay, Jessie, okay.
Yeah, so that was really, really tough to do. And so I'm guessing most of your community had probably experienced shadow work.
Yeah. Well, most of my clients, yeah, or every client really, and my community maybe know about it. For those that don't, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's accepting all parts of yourself. So the things that we see in other people or that we reject in other people are parts of ourselves really that we're rejecting in ourselves. And so shadow work enables you to see those parts of another person and actually recognize them in yourself as well. And that's why I really didn't want to do that with my parents, because I didn't want to recognize that parts of them that I was rejecting were just parts of myself that I was rejecting. But as I got to do that and integrate that, it was actually probably the most freeing thing I think I've done as in working with a coach, like shadow work and integrating my parents. And I've done it actually again since, like I've done it twice. And yeah, it's just, it was actually the most powerful tool that I've used.
There's going to be plenty more times too. I remember the first time I did shadow work with my parents, I was like, yep, all right, we can tick that box, put it on the shelf, we're done. And then I'm like, how is this coming up again? Like, I've already done this, right? And that speaks on a little bit of my past experience or my level of resistance, you know, with some of my first coaches. I'm like, why am I talking about this again? Like, I've already dealt with this. And the thing is, as you grow and evolve, you know, we're shedding layers of ourselves, right? So we create layers in order to protect ourselves, to feel safe within ourselves. We create stories that help us, which, by the way, stories are very important when they are useful to people. So, you know, we create stories which then create our reality, and then that helps us feel safe within that. So, you know, when we start to drop the stories, we start to, or the stories, how we're seeing things, because everything is always coming from our perception. When we start to drop that, we see things differently. And it's kind of like a, what is it, a kaleidoscope? Yeah, it's like all those different angles. You know, so the work is never just tick the box, like I once thought when I started, right, to get there. And then once I'd done it all, I'd be healed forever and there was nothing ever wrong with me. How much I was very wrong with that. Well, not wrong, I was ambitious. So, you know, as you start to see things differently, it gives you more opportunity to do more shadow work, to integrate more things, to accept and create acceptance from that rejection around more and more and more. And then you know, you just drop into this beautiful space of where you are now, and it just keeps getting better and 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 better. So, all right. And can we talk about how, is there anything else you want to say on that?
Probably just like where I'm at now, like for those of you who do, you know, have strained relationships with your family or with your friends after doing shadow work, I have like a completely neutral and but loving feeling towards my parents now, and I can actually see them as people and not just my parents, and people who were hurting, and have so much compassion and understanding for them. And now I can just have a relationship with them that doesn't have to be like, there's no, for me, there's no sort of blame there anymore. There's no finger pointing. I can just have an open, loving relationship with them and accept them for who they are, and know that that's just them and that's okay. So it's totally worth doing.
Yeah. I do have a little confession. I did see a comment somewhere, I don't know, I think it was with your dad and just what you had written. And I teared up as soon as I seen it. Just watching that from afar, or just being able to see that in my feed, I was just like, oh, that is beautiful. And then I started crying. I was like, all right, Eliza, move on. I hadn't told you that. I forgot about it until you just said that then. All right. And then, so how has all of this, so even stepping into where it is that you are now, let's talk about the things that have happened and evolved since you created space. Because one thing I do want to say is, you know, in my experience, or what I knew when I was working with Jessie, I could see there was so much of your passion and your power and the things that you wanted to do, but also could feel those 3 feet on the brake. And just, I guess, knowing that how much space was possible, but also the things you were wanting to create, not that you couldn't not create that from the space that you were in. But there was so many blockages, and that how I knew that was the level of resistance, right? Wherever you have resistance, it's like gold. Like, you want to dig in that resistance, and it may take you a couple of months, it may take you years, and you get the choice to go at your own pace as well, right? If a client doesn't want to go there, for coaches that are watching, then you cannot force a client to go there. And it's important that they move at the pace of which feels comfortable for them, you know, creating rapport and relationship with your clients. And I'm so blessed to have such amazing relationships with my clients still, long after we've done coaching. And you know, the space you have created, I feel like from an outside perspective, has given you so much space to grow, to create all of these things and evolve in the way that you have. And it's just like the most magnificent thing. So let's talk about all the things that you have, all the things that you've done and created and accomplished since then.
Well, it's pretty funny. Like, I came to you thinking, you know, I'm going to work on my business. We ended up working on all my personal stuff. I thought that, you know, dealt with that, and, you know, ticked that box, put it on that shelf. But after that, all the space that I created actually became space for my business. Like, I moved from Esperance, which is 10 hours south east of Perth and moved back to Perth. And in that time, it was just like this huge time of processing things that we had worked on and allowing it all to settle and kind of finding what my next move was. And I just didn't feel like called to work on my business. I knew I still had, like, I was, you know, settling in a new town, getting a new job, all these things were happening. So yeah, I moved, I got a new job. I've done master practitioner, which was in December, and that's like 2 months long, 3 months long. And that process in itself was huge, like massive, right? And then that all led me to being the grief and trauma coach. So yeah, I thought I was going to work on my business, and then it turned out I had about 3 or 4 months off my business, and I was kind of battling with that as well. Like, yeah, you know, still hard. Had a foot on the brake. You know, it was hard. Yeah, it was really hard to kind of walk, like, well, just not be in my business, and not feel like a failure. But I knew that, you know, I had given myself this space, and so I kept working through those feelings, which was really amazing. And then after doing master practitioner, that just created so much more clarity and so much more space. And that was when the time was right. That was when I could see where to go with my coaching clearly. And now I'm about to create even more space for myself by leaving my job and going full into coaching. So that feels, yeah, super amazing.
Go, girlfriend, it's your birthday. Hell yes.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. And also as well that you rebranded your business, went and had a full photo shoot, which is just, I'm in admiration when I'm looking at your photo shoot. You can literally
it was called
see the transformation.
Yeah, well, that was part of like stepping into my new identity, like, and an identity that I could create for myself. Like, I had an identity created, you know, we all have an identity created in our childhood and beliefs of who we are and who we should be in order to get love from our parents. And I had stripped all that away, and then I was like, who do I want to be now? And I was looking at photographers, and there was this lady that did potent identity photo shoots, and I was like, that's for me. I need that. So yeah, I jumped into that, and that was such an awesome experience. It was scary, and I felt super vulnerable, but yeah, it was also really amazing and transformative as well.
And what a really great way to celebrate, you know, how, like, all the hurdles, all the challenges, and how much you transformed to date. I really do recommend photo shoots, you know, at least once a year, because if you're doing, you know, growth work, you're changing all the time, all of the time. Awesome. So congratulations on leaving the job and stepping in full time. That is absolutely amazing. And the only thing I wanted to say on that as well was just around the, you know, trusting that, or giving yourself space to integrate all the things that you had worked on, and just being able to be in that space. I know for myself, it's been a really, sometimes it still does challenge me to just really lean back and allow things to happen instead of needing to force them, you know, and giving yourself that space. So being able to do that has allowed you to go full throttle into your new space, right? And it's just kind of, I want to say trusting in timing, but yes, but more so trusting in self, like trusting yourself, understanding your feelings and your emotions, and then just listening and tuning into your body. And the more aware you become, the easier that trusting of yourself becomes as well. I feel like that's an ever-going evolution. Learning to trust yourself more and more and more. And the more you change, the more, you know, avenues you've got. And yeah. So, all right. We might wrap it up there. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, or any of the topics?
No, that was really fun. I love that.
I actually feel like we could go for another hour.
I know, I was like, oh,
have
what? It's over.
What do they call it? Is it an encore when they come back?
Yeah.
We'll do an encore.
Yeah.
I would love for you, if you are watching this live or even if you're watching it afterwards, to just drop a message of maybe, like drop a comment of maybe a message that really resonated with you, something that stood out. Maybe it was something about Jessie's experience that inspired you. If you could leave that below, that would be amazing. If you feel anyone would benefit from hearing Jessie's story, I would love for you to share it. I'm definitely going to be sharing this everywhere. So my Bosswoman page, my profile, it'll be on my YouTube, and also Jessie will be sharing this far and wide as well. And we'll do a couple of stories to share about it as well. Jessie, so you also have a program that is available for anybody that may be experiencing, may have experienced, or may want to work on or through, and you feel called to want to chat with Jessie. She has a program available. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a life transformation program. So basically, I'm going to help you transform your life. So it doesn't matter if you like experienced grief, 20, 30 years ago, or, your trauma is, happened a really long time ago, or if it's really, really fresh. It's a process that can help you regardless of where you're at. And that's what I specialize in. So if you know you've got some stuff from your past that you haven't processed and you haven't unpacked, I'm the girl to help you with that, because I was there, as we've discussed. I was not wanting to work on it, but I know now how powerful it is and how much it's going to set you free and just propel you forward in your life. And there's just so many good things that you can find on the other side of working through that stuff. So that is what I'm super passionate about. And if you're feeling like you need a life transformation, then hit me up, because that's what I do. And if you want to chat about it, we can have a 30-minute free chat. So I think you've got a link for that, Eliza, and you can pop that in, and you can just book in for a chat, and we can talk about what's going on for you and whether or not we'll be a good fit to work together, and whether or not I can help you. So that's
awesome. So I'm going to pop all of the links to all of Jessie's social medias, every possible link that's available. Mine will also be there as well. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them or private message either of us individually. And if you feel called to, definitely reach out to Jessie. And I just want to say thank you so much, Jessie. This has been heaps of fun. And such an honor working with you, and just so beautiful to see everything that's happened for you since. And I'll see you. I'll chat to you after this.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye.